morning, biology students. I am going to take you through the answers to this activity and give you a chance to make some changes. Make sure that you have attempted this activity before you are listening to this answer key. Feel free to also pause the video to make some changes. So what we are looking at here is the assignment that we started on Friday, assignment number 404. How did the bacteria become resistant? We're trying to find out, how do we end up with resistant bacteria, and how do we treat bacterial infections? Here we go. When looking at this first section of the number 404 activity, there were 5 different medications that we were looking at to identify how do they make us feel better? How do different medicines make us feel better? We're going to start here with what's called NSAIDs. This stands for non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs. These are things like Advil, ibuprofen, and these different types of medications don't actually cure a bacterial infection. However, they help reduce inflammation, which kind of relieves some of the pain or pressure that you're experiencing while you might be sick with a bacterial or virus infection. So sometimes some reasons why you might take them, maybe you're experiencing back pain, cramps, headaches, as well as, headaches were listed here. So maybe possibly you have taken an NSAID before, but again, they are not a cure. They just treat symptoms. The next type is called a corticosteroid. Since it's a steroid and it's an inhaler, it's something that you puff into your mouth, gets into your lungs. It's going to help people who are experiencing asthma. When your tissues of your lungs swell up, they get inflamed. So an asthma inhaler inject steroid into your lungs. Steroids help reduce inflammation. The next type of medicine that you might take is preventative. This is a vaccine. So you take a vaccine that's injected, or maybe it is liquid drops, or it's something that is swabbed into your nose. This is going to help your body develop immunity before you get sick. So some people are going out to get that COVID vaccine. They are trying to help their body build that immunity without actually getting the virus first. So this helps prevent you from getting sick from the virus. Some examples would be like the flu shot or the COVID vaccine shot. The next type is called an antiviral. This is something you would take if you have contracted a viral infection, a virus, like the flu or like COVID, and these can help decrease your symptoms that you're experiencing after you have already caught a viral infection. So this is not preventative. This is kind of a reactive drug that you can take. An example would be Tamiflu. Last one that we're going to focus on is the most important for us here in this unit, is learning about antibiotics. Antibiotics are drugs that you take after you have caught a bacterial infection. So this is going to help kill the bacteria that's in your body. Some examples of this are going to be penicillin or methicillin. All right, those are the different types of medicines that people take when they are feeling sick. So now we're going to talk about the bacteria. And we're going to talk about the process that bacteria use to reproduce. That process where 1 divides into 2 is called binary fission. Bi being the prefix for 2, meaning so it starts as 1 cell, divides into 2, and that process of splitting apart is called fission. So that's why it's called binary fission, as bacteria split and reproduce from 1 bacteria cell into 2. How long does it take? When you Google this, it says it takes anywhere from 4 to 20 minutes. For this class, we are going to use 20 minutes to take. So from 1 cell, how long would it take to produce 2? That would take 20 minutes in order for it to divide, which is really fast, actually. So how long would it take for you to go from 1 bacteria to 8? As you start with 1 bacteria, that splits into 2 splits into 4, 4 splits into 8. That would take 3 increments of 20, so that's going to take 60 minutes or 1 hour. there is what your graph should look like. We're going to talk about the data here in a second. It's an exponential growth, right? Because it's growing exponentially once every 20 minutes. All right, so this is what your data table should look like. We should start with one bacterial cell initially, and then after 20 minutes, that one bacteria splits into two. After 40 minutes, those two bacteria split into four. After 20 minutes, we now have 20 more minutes. We have those four bacteria splitting to eight. So notice your number of bacteria is doubling in size every 20 minutes. So you could have possibly used a formula to calculate this out. If not, feel free to take a look at our manual calculated data table here and take a look at your numbers to see, does your number match ours? So after 400 minutes, we should have around just over 1,048,576 bacteria cells. So in about 6 hours, you now have yourself over 1 million bacteria cells that could be potentially present in your body or wherever they are growing and going through binary fission. So how do different types of antibiotics work? I'm going to take you through 3 different types of antibiotics. The first type of antibiotic is called a beta-lactam. This essentially attacks the bacteria's cell wall. It makes it so that the bacteria is not efficient at building a cell wall. Remember, a cell wall for a plant cell or a bacterial cell essentially keeps in all of the components inside of the cell. As that cell starts to grow, because that's what it naturally does when it goes to divide, it gets bigger and then splits. As it gets bigger, the pressure inside, since the cell wall is being broken down by that beta-lactam antibiotic, it basically bursts or explodes. So some examples of this type of antibiotic, a beta-lactam, would be penicillin or cephalosporins. The next type of antibiotic is called a macrolide. They essentially get into the bacterial cell and start to attack and kill the ribosomes. If the ribosomes aren't present, we know that there's no way for this bacteria to make proteins and go through protein synthesis. And if they can't build proteins, then the cell is going to die. What type of antibiotic would this be? Erythromycin would be an example of a macrolide. The last type of antibiotic are called quinolones. They essentially get in and go straight to the source. They break the bacterial cell's DNA. Once the DNA is broken, there are no instructions for life. So this bacterial cell cannot survive. These are the heavy hitters. These are the very aggressive types of antibiotics. Doctors tend to save these for last if they can't get the bacterial infection under control. They will prescribe a ciprofloxacin or a levofloxacin. If you have ever been on Cipro, then you know that you had a more aggressive form of a bacterial infection. Whereas something like a beta-lactam is kind of like the initial direction that doctors are going to go to prescribe you an antibiotic. Okay, so the last portion is all about how long do you have to take antibiotics? Typically, doctors prescribe anywhere from 7 to 10 days, and here's why. Let's hypothetically assume that when you take dose number 1 of your antibiotic, you have 1 million bacteria present inside of your body. If that bacteria or if that antibiotic is 90% effective, that means that it should kill 90% of the bacteria every time you take a dose. So if I have 1 million bacteria and my antibiotic is 90% effective, that means it's going to kill 900,000 bacterial cells, leaving behind 100,000 bacterial cells. Remember, I started with 1 million, 90% were killed, so 900,000 were killed, and that leaves behind 100,000 bacterial cells. Then when I go to take dose number 2, possibly later that day or the next day, I have somewhere around, hypothetically, 100,000 bacterial cells. 90% of them are killed, so 90,000 are killed. That leaves behind 10,000 bacterial cells to remain. Dose number 3 kicks in, 9,000. Dose number 3 starts with 10,000 bacterial cells, 9,000 are killed. That leaves behind 1,000. I think you see the trend. Eventually, after taking dose number 7, you're going to be left with 0 bacteria remaining as long as that antibiotic was 90% effective. This is why everyone, when they are prescribed an antibiotic, it always says on that bottle that all of this prescription must be taken unless otherwise instructed by your physician. Because it's going to take this many doses in order to kill off the bacterial infection that you have. Okay, so notice this is the opposite direction graph. And so this is 7 doses worth of antibiotics in order to bring down your bacterial infection that you have in your body. All right, hopefully that answers all of the questions that you might be having about this assignment. These are the notes that you should have been placing into your notebook. And if you need to go back and possibly rewatch any of this activity or any of this video, please do so. This activity is going to be available for you to use on your progress check tomorrow. So make sure that you've got enough notes and that you understand this activity. Feel free to ask me questions at the beginning of the period tomorrow on Tuesday. All right, I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.